Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today in our InfoSec seminar, organized by the Information Systems Security and Assurance Management Department in Mahalshan School of Management. We begin our October InfoSec seminar by acknowledging that although this seminar is being held virtually, Concordia University of Edmonton is located on Treaty 6 territory and a traditional meeting ground and home for many indigenous peoples, including Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, and Nakota Sioux peoples. We respect and acknowledge these. We are pleased to welcome Dr. Andreas Gluzu, the Deputy Provost, who have joined us today for this great InfoSec talk. In this seminar, we are pleased to have Paul Przytocki to give us an interesting talk about inside Canada's cyber threat landscape. Paul is a cyber engagement analyst with the Cyber Partnerships Directorate at the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. In this role, he works to ensure public sector critical infrastructure organizations have access to the cyber services, expert advice, and guidance. Paul is involved in various initiatives that promote organizational cyber resilience against evolving cyber threats and is passionate about spreading awareness to strengthen Canada's collective cybersecurity posture. Thanks, Paul, for being with us today and sharing your experience with our audience. Just one quick note. During the presentation, microphones will be turned off to avoid interrupting the speaker. At the end, we will have 10 to 15 minutes for questions, and microphones will be turned back on. Please limit yourself to one question to give opportunity to other participants to ask. If we have enough time, please feel free to re-ask again. And at the end, I will share the registration and feedback form with you. Please ensure you provide your name and a brief feedback so we can send you your certificate of attendance. Thank you. Please go ahead, Paul.
Well, thank you very much for that introduction. I'm very happy to be here today. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for coming on your lunch hour to this InfoSec seminar. My name is Paul Przytocki. I'm a cyber engagement analyst. Thank you very much, Aslam, for that introduction. I work with public sector entities within Canada, which includes provinces and territories, democratic institutions, municipalities, health sector, academia sectors, such as yourselves, and certain areas of the energy sector, which include electricity and nuclear. And so I'll just get right into it. If at any point there's any technical difficulties, please, one of our hosts, just shout out and let me know. Full disclosure, I am working off two systems because my work device actually did not let me connect to the meeting. So I'm kind of working simultaneously here. Hopefully everything goes smoothly. Gotta love those security protocols. Okay, so let's get going here. So for those of us who may not be aware who the Cyber Centre is, we are the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. The Cyber Centre is Canada's technical authority on cybersecurity. We are part of the Communication Security Establishment, which is Canada's National Cryptologic Signals Intelligence Agency. And we are a single unified source of expert advice, guidance, services, and support on cybersecurity for Canadians and Canadian organizations. We work in close collaboration with Government of Canada departments, the private sector, critical infrastructure, Canadian businesses, as well as international partners to prepare for, respond to, mitigate, and recover from cyber events. We are an outward-facing organization, and we are welcoming partnerships that help build a stronger and more resilient cyberspace in Canada. In line with the National Cybersecurity Strategy, the Cyber Centre represents a more cooperative approach to cybersecurity in our country and across borders with our international partners. So today we are going to focus primarily on the National Cyber Threat Assessment 2025-2026. Now, every 2 years, the Cyber Centre releases an NCTA, and the most recent one was just released in October of 2024. So we are 1 year into this iteration, and it provides a high-level overview of how we see, we as in the Cyber Centre, see the Canadian cyber threat landscape progressing over the next 2 years. And it is broken into 3 sections. The first section focuses on cyber threats from state adversaries. The second section, cybercrime threats. The third section, trend shaping Canada's cyber threat landscape moving forward. Now, a lot of our folks who publish this document say that when somebody reads this, and I actually highly encourage everyone to take a read because we will kind of just be scratching the surface, although we're going into some details today. I highly encourage you to take a read, and when doing so, do so through these kind of three key narratives. The first is that Canada is confronting an expanding and complex cyber threat landscape with a growing cast of malicious actors. Secondly, Canada's state adversaries are becoming more aggressive in cyberspace. And thirdly, cybercrime remains a persistent threat to Canadian individuals, organizations, critical infrastructure, and all levels of government. And with that, let's dive right in. So first, we'll start off with the key judgments within the assessment, and this will set the tone for the presentation moving forward, and we will touch on each one of these. So let's start in the nation-state cyber threat space. So Canada's state adversaries are using cyber operations to disrupt and divide. So state-sponsored cyber threat actors are almost certainly combining disruptive computer network attacks with online information campaigns to intimidate and shape public opinion. State-sponsored cyber threat actors are very likely targeting critical infrastructure, networks in Canada, and as well as our allied countries to pre-position for possible future disruptive or destructive cyber operations. So moving on, so the first state that the NCTA focuses on is the People's Republic of China. So the PRC's expansive and aggressive cyber program presents the most sophisticated and active state cyber threat to Canada today. The PRC conducts cyber operations against Canadian interests to serve high-level political and commercial objectives, which include espionage, intellectual property theft, malign influence, and transnational repression. Among our adversaries, the PRC cyber program scale, tradecraft, and ambitions within cyberspace are second to none. Secondly, Russia's cyber program furthers Moscow's ambitions to confront and destabilize Canada and our allies. So Canada is very likely a valuable espionage target for Russian state-sponsored cyber threat actors, which includes including through our supply chain compromises, and given our membership in NATO, our support for Ukraine, as well as our presence in the Arctic. They have taken an interest in us. Pro-Russian non-state actors, some of which the Cyber Center assesses likely have links to the Russian government, are targeting Canada in an attempt to influence our foreign policy. Thirdly, within the state cyber threat landscape, Iran uses its cyber program to coerce, harass, and repress its opponents, while managing escalation risks at the exact same time. So Iran's increasing willingness to conduct disruptive cyber attacks beyond the Middle East and its persistent efforts to track and monitor regime opponents through cyberspace present a growing cybersecurity challenge for Canada as well as our allies. Moving on to the cybercrime space. So the cybercrime as a service business model is almost certainly contributing to the continued resilience of cybercrime in Canada and around the world. So the cybercrime as a service ecosystem is underpinned by a flourishing online marketplace where specialized cyber threat actors sell stolen and leaked data and ready-to-use malicious tools to other cyber criminals. This has almost certainly enabled a growing number of actors with a range of capabilities and expertise to carry out various cybercrime attacks and as well as evade law enforcement detection. It should also be noted that this is also lowering the barriers of entry, so less technically capable cyber criminals are able to kind of enter that ecosystem and do the damage that they do. Finally, so ransomware is the top cybercrime threat facing Canada's critical infrastructure. Ransomware directly disrupts critical infrastructure entities' ability to deliver critical services, which can result in putting the physical and emotional well-being of victims in jeopardy. And in the next 2 years, mind you, this is from 2 years from last October, given the publication of the document, ransomware actors will almost certainly escalate their extortion tactics and refine their capabilities to increase pressure on victims to pay ransoms and also evade law enforcement detection. So these are just the key judgments. So let's take a a little bit of a deeper dive into the cyber threat from state adversaries. To start off, so Canada is confronting an expanding and more complex state cyber ecosystem. With regards to our strategic adversaries, the cyber programs of the PRC, Russia, and Iran remain the greatest strategic cyber threats to Canada. These countries are united in their desire to challenge United States dominance in multiple domains, which include cyberspace, and promote an authoritarian vision of for internet governance, and domestic surveillance. Regarding emerging programs, at the same time, countries that aspire to become new centers of power within the global system are building cyber programs that present varying levels of threat to Canada. While emerging states focus their cyber efforts on domestic threats, as well as regional rivals, they also use their cyber capabilities to track and survey activists and dissidents living abroad. So in terms of the wider cyber ecosystem, both advanced and emerging states are leveraging a complex ecosystem of commercial surveillance vendors, contractors, and as well as affiliate research institutions to support or perform cyber threat activities. States use these entities to mask their cyber operations or to acquire exploits, digital infrastructure, and data. Emerging states are very likely using the wider ecosystem to try and move up the ladder of sophistication and acquire capabilities that may be beyond their capacity to develop internally. So when we talk about this wider state ecosystem, what are we kind of talking about? So we could say here that you have the core ecosystem and then you have the wider ecosystem. So the core ecosystem comprises of intelligence organizations, military organizations, as well as front companies. So intelligence orgs and military orgs, those are fairly self-explanatory, but these front companies are established and controlled by the state to conceal and provide cover for state cyber threat actors. So the wider ecosystem that comprises of two kind of sub-elements. The first, those that perform cyber threat activities, that includes cyber contractors and freelance cyber operators. These cyber contractors are private companies that perform project-based cyber threat activities for intelligence, government, or military clients, and they do so on a contractual basis. And then you also have your freelance cyber operators. These are operators that work independently or they work in small teams, and they perform cyber threat activities for the state when the opportunity arises. Then following that, you have the entities that kind of support cyber threat activities. These are the affiliated research institutions that develop and provide advanced technologies, the commercial surveillance vendors, private companies that develop and sell exploits, spyware, and other services, as well as exploit brokers, which are entities or individuals in the business of buying and selling exploits. And yeah, as we can see, it's very dynamic, it's complex, and there are a lot of actors involved within this state cyber program ecosystem. Moving on. Just 1 second here. Okay, so PRC. So PRC state-sponsored cyber threat actors persistently conduct cyber espionage against federal, provincial, territorial, municipal, and Indigenous government networks in Canada. The PRC cyber threat actors have compromised and maintained access to multiple government networks over the past 5 years, collecting communications and other valuable information. However, it is important to note that all known federal government compromises have been resolved and did not cause too much damage, or no damage at all, really. It is very important to note, and the takeaway here is that it is very likely that the actors responsible for these intrusions dedicated significant time and resources to learn about the target networks. So while all those compromises were taken care of, very extremely limited, the important takeaway is that it attests to the capability of some of these actors. So also, regarding our information ecosystem, Canada has been a long-standing priority of PRC intelligence collection. The PRC cyber program almost certainly continues to support the PRC's espionage activities against Canada's private sector, our academic institutions, supply chains, as well as government-affiliated research and development organizations. And the Cyber Center assesses that it is very likely that PRC cyber threat actors have stolen commercially sensitive data from Canadian firms and institutions. Also, in a strategic shift, the PRC is very likely integrating offensive cyber operations into its military plan to gain an advantage during a potential conflict with the United States. If any of you have heard of Volt Typhoon, which was very active last year and remains active even to this day, this is a testament of how they are seeking to pre-position within U.S. critical infrastructure networks for possible disruptive or destructive cyber attacks in the event of major crisis or conflict with the U.S. Now, the implications for Canada are the interconnectivity between our critical infrastructure sectors. We are close, we're allies, so there would likely be cascading effects. Okay, moving on. So the Russian Federation. So Canada is very likely a valuable espionage target for Russian state-sponsored cyber threat actors. And again, as iterated before, this is due to our membership in NATO, our support for Ukraine, as well as our presence in the Arctic. Now, Russian cyber threat actors are very likely targeting Canadian government, military, private sector, and critical infrastructure networks as part of Russia's foreign and military intelligence collection operations. Public and private sector organizations in Canada are also vulnerable to global supply chain compromises by Russian threat actors. And an example of these threat actors' activity was in 2020, where Russian state-sponsored cyber threat actors compromised the supply chain by implanting malware into a software as a service organization and one of their software updates. So protect those supply chains. We'll get into supply chains a little bit more later on. So following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, pro-Russian non-state cyber threat actors, some of which the Cyber Center assesses likely have links to the Russian government and intelligence services, have almost certainly conducted disruptive cyber threat activity against Canada and leveraged social media to draw attention to these attacks. We assess that the intent of these campaigns is very likely to influence and undermine Canada's support for Ukraine. And an example of this was a distributed denial of service attack campaign in April of 2023 by pro-Russian non-state actors against Government of Canada and Canadian private sector websites, which coincided with the Ukrainian Prime Minister's visit to Canada. Now, although pro-Russian non-state cyber threat activity against Canada has primarily consisted of distributed denial of service attacks and website defacements, some PRNS actors have attempted to compromise operational technology systems within critical infrastructure in North America and in Europe with the intent to disrupt those systems. This activity opportunistically targets internet accessible devices and exploits basic vulnerabilities. And for example, insecure remote access software or the use of default passwords. So change those passwords. Moving on. So the Islamic Republic of Iran. Iran is expanding its disruptive cyber threat activity against the West. So Iran has an aggressive cyber program that the regime uses to coerce, harass, and repress Iran's opponents while managing escalation risks. And Iran's increasing willingness to conduct disruptive cyber attacks beyond the Middle East and its persistent efforts to track and monitor regime opponents through cyberspace present a growing cybersecurity challenge for Canada and our allies. Furthermore, Iranian cyber threat actors have performed denial of service attacks, have attempted to manipulate industrial control systems, and have accessed government and private networks to encrypt, wipe, and leak data. Iran has developed a network of hacktivist personas and social media channels that exploit these disruptive events to spread the regime's messages and also influence the target society while keeping Tehran's official involvement ambiguous and deniable. The takeaway here is that the Cyber Center assesses that escalation of tensions in Canada-Iran bilateral relations would very likely increase the risk that Canada would be a target of Iranian coercive cyber operations. So that is basically the state cyber threat ecosystem kind of in a nutshell. That was a bit of information. But again, go ahead and take a look at the National Cyber Threat Assessment, as well as any of our other cyber threat bulletins that have touched on these topics. And there's plenty more information on our website. I'll talk about some further resources later on as well. So now let's get into cybercrime. Okay, so just a brief overview of what we're going to get into today. So the interconnected online cybercrime ecosystem facilitates the cybercrime as a service industry. Fraud and scams, I mean, actually, not surprisingly, fraud and scams remain a persistent threat to Canadians. I'm sure we all still get those texts. We still get those emails, maybe even those phone calls. So that remains persistent. The ransomware threat to Canada continues to grow and evolve. It is impacting Canada's critical infrastructure, and ransomware actors are evolving their tactics to boost profits and evade detection. We will get into each one of these, not so much fraud and scams, but the cybercrime as a service and ransomware, we're going to touch in pretty good detail. Okay. So the cybercrime as a service, or CAAS. Many of us, I'm sure all of us know, you have your software as a service providers, your platform as a service providers, your infrastructure as a service providers. Well, the cyber criminals are operating under the same model. So the threat posed by financially motivated and opportunistic cybercrime continues to be the cyber threat activity that is most likely to affect Canadians and Canadian organizations. So the Cyber Center judges that the continued resilience of cybercrime in Canada and around the world is due to the rise of the cybercrime as a business model. With cybercrime as a service, specialized threat actors sell stolen and leaked data and ready-to-use malicious tools to other cybercriminals online, enabling their illicit activities. So on the right, we can see the different forms of cybercrime as a service services that are available. So you have your malware as a services, and those are services to support the development and deployment of malware that can steal or encrypt victim data or gain remote control to victim systems. The ransomware as a service delivery, we will get into that in the subsequent slides, so we'll kind of skip that one for now. We also have access as a service, which specialized threat actors gain access to victim systems and sell access to compromised systems to clients. We have the phishing as a service that include the delivery of detailed instructions, email templates, and ready-to-use tools for executing phishing attacks. We also have distributed denial of service as a service. These are rented out botnets and user-friendly interfaces for clients to conduct DDoS attacks. And then also the exploits as a service. So these are specialized actors that lease or rent exploit kits and support clients on how to use exploits against software vulnerabilities. And it is important to kind of highlight how are they doing this. So they are interacting in various marketplaces, kind of that online marketplaces that act something like Etsy or eBay, where the cyber criminals use these marketplaces to buy or sell cybercrime tools and services. Also various forums where they go to purchase illicit tools and services and also connect with other cyber criminals. And then also chat platforms. They are using encrypted messaging platforms like Telegram to communicate in private channels. And also these channels can be tailored to various cybercrime topics, which also the whole point here is these are very organized groups and individuals. So ransomware is a growing threat impacting critical infrastructure. It is almost certainly the top cybercrime threat facing Canada's infrastructure. Critical infrastructure, they're using big game hunting and elevating extortion techniques to extract larger ransom payouts. And the top threat stems from ransomware as a service groups. And so if we look at figure 10 here, the ransomware as a service ecosystem. At the top, we have the cybercrime as a service offerings and marketplaces and forums, which therefore core ransomware groups, they develop their ransomware and then they lease it out to affiliates. The affiliates therefore use ransomware to attack victims. The victim gets attacked, data may be exfiltrated, stolen, what have you, and then that gets fed up, possibly back into the cybercrime as a service ecosystem. So we can see that this is very cyclical and that, again, a very organized kind of a threat area. So In terms of numbers, relative growth from 2021 of Canadian ransomware incidents known to the Cyber Center. So these are just what have been reported to us. We have seen an average of 26% year-over-year growth. And again, this is just what we know of. So we always promote and encourage people to report cyber incidents to us. If we that way, if we know what's out there, we know how to help. I'm just going to take a sip of water here. Excuse me, sorry. Okay, so regarding ransomware actors and how they are using new tactics to obfuscate their activity. So the first is dual ransomware attacks. They are using multiple ransomware strains used in successive attacks against the same target to avoid attribution and to the actors responsible for the attack. They are using encryption. So first, remote encryption, using one compromised device to encrypt data on another device in order to bypass security mechanisms. We have hybrid encryption, using multiple layers of encryption to make it more difficult for victims to recover their data. And they are using living off the land techniques. So they're blending in with normal network traffic and in order to move around, escalate their privileges, and before that they encrypt or exfiltrate sensitive data. Also, they're using uncommon programming languages. So coding malware, using uncommon programming languages to bypass security mechanisms, which are designed to detect more popular programming languages. So this is how they are kind of circumventing some of those detecting mechanisms by being extremely creative. The takeaway here is that these actors are extremely creative. They're smart. So diligence and building our knowledge base is very, very important. So in the final section of the NCTA, we highlight 5 trends that will shape Canada's cyber threat environment until 2026, most likely after that as well, because previous trends that we have identified in previous NCTAs are still applicable today. And then it's important to note that these trends have been observed among cyber criminals, non-state actors, as well as state-sponsored cyber threat actors. So the first trend, I mean, what's a cybersecurity talk without at least mentioning artificial intelligence? So artificial intelligence technologies are amplifying cyberspace threats. They are almost certainly lowering the barriers to entry and enhancing the quality, scale, and precision of malicious cyber threat activity that could be used to impact critical infrastructure. So for example, the Cyber Center assesses that technically skilled cyber threat actors will almost certainly attempt to misuse AI tools in novel ways over the next couple of years as the technology develops. This includes automating parts of the cyber attack chain to improve productivity. So as we all know, many organizations are implementing various AI tools into their business process, into their workflows to improve productivity. Well, so are the cyber threat actors. So it's important to stay on top of a lot of the trends in AI and also make sure that you have those necessary security policies when using AI or developing it. So the second trend, cyber threat actor tradecraft is evolving to evade detection. So they are very likely exploiting vulnerabilities in edge devices, which we will get into briefly in a moment, because network defenses may have limited capability to monitor and detect malware activity on them. An example of this, in early 2024, Canada and our allies detected that a well-resourced and sophisticated state-sponsored cyber threat actor had collected and exfiltrated data by exploiting 2 newly discovered vulnerabilities in virtual private network devices, which were used by government and critical national infrastructure networks. The third trend, geopolitically inspired non-state actors are creating unpredictability. So geopolitical conflicts and tensions are inspiring disruptive cyber threat activity from non-state groups commonly referred to as hacktivists. I'm sure we've all heard of hacktivists. This ecosystem is dynamic and unpredictable, with new groups frequently appearing, they're disappearing, and they're frequently shifting their motivations. These actors typically conduct DDoS attacks and website defacements to gain attention, but some have targeted vulnerable critical infrastructure. They have also elevated the impact of their activity by opportunistically targeting and disrupting vulnerable critical infrastructure. For example, municipal water systems, which results in risking serious harm to the public. The fourth trend, vendor concentration is increasing cyber vulnerability. So many technology services today are concentrated with only a few large providers of a given digital service, each with a large base of users, for example, your cloud service providers and specialized software as a service platforms. These dominant service providers are magnets for malicious cyber threat activity. When dominant service providers are compromised, the impact of cybersecurity incidents are amplified and can have cascading and system-wide disruptive impacts on the economy, on our society, and as well as endanger our national security. And then finally, the fifth trend, dual-use commercial services in the digital crossfire. So governments around the world are turning to services available in the commercial market to gain a competitive advantage over their adversaries and ensure resiliency. So these commercial services provide service to both civilian and military customers, which is hence the term dual use services. And the Cyber Center assesses that dual use commercial services are almost certainly targets of state-sponsored cyber threat actors. Attacks against commercial services can have disruptive effects on civilian and critical infrastructure customers and that all depend on the same service. And this is especially concerning, and a good example of this would be the satellite industry. So now that we talked about the who, the what, the why even, let's talk a little bit about the how. We did a little bit before, but I'd like to highlight a couple attack vectors that our executives have recently been highlighting as they go out and speak to the public. So the first is the supply chains. So sophisticated cyber threat actors target the supply chain and service providers for the following reasons. So supply chains and various service providers, they all act as a force multiplier to maximize the number of potential targets. They act as an indirect route to the networks of their targets to obtain sensitive information or to disrupt the actual target. And as we can see here, there's a variety of actors, although it does require a certain level of sophistication. We have state-sponsored threat actors who are almost certainly continuing to use supply chains to compromise targets of strategic interest. We have criminal threat actors, especially ransomware operators, who are very likely to continue targeting supply chains to maximize the number of potential victims and profits per compromise. So the Cyber Center recommends that all organizations and individuals should know their supply chains and ensure that those vendors meet cybersecurity standards that are important to each organization. These cyber requirements should be baked into procurement clauses, which can include anything from mandatory reporting of incidents within 24 hours, providing cybersecurity plans to the procuring organization, and organizations need to be clear about the level of transparency that they expect from their vendors. So yeah, it's very important. Protect that supply chain. Edge devices. So the second attack vector I'd like to talk briefly about, I mean, as we all probably know, are edge devices, but this is something that the Cyber Center has really been focusing on. As we all know, edge devices are network hardware or software components that bridge internally managed networks and external untrusted networks such as the internet. And these include your routers, your firewalls, your VPNs, and these are everywhere, even your local coffee shops, right? So being exposed to the internet, these devices are at a higher risk of having vulnerabilities exploited by various threat actors. And these threats include misconfigurations and mismanagement of these devices, exploiting vulnerabilities, denial of service to distributed denial of service attack, web-based applications, vulnerabilities within those, and also those default configuration settings. And taking this piece on edge devices and the last piece on supply chains, this is why the Cyber Center is really pushing vendors and various organizations to ensure that they are meeting secure by design and secure by default principles, which is very important. Security is everybody's responsibility. Okay, so now I hope I didn't scare you all too much. That was a lot of kind of doom and gloom, but not always. So on our website, we have a variety of advice and guidance pieces. For example, the security considerations for edge devices, I just discussed those. This document is fairly robust and it goes into detail on how we can better secure edge devices in our networks and within our organizations. And also we have the cybersecurity readiness goals published by the Cyber Center. So these goals are 36 foundational goals that are situated within the NIST Cybersecurity Framework 2.0. So each one of the 36 goals is situated within either the govern, identify, protect, detect, respond, recover pillars. And they give practical advice and guidance on what to do in terms of these 6 pillars. They also identify how they address various TTPs. So I highly recommend you take a look at that. I know we have a lot of students here, so go ahead, take a look at that. We also have a variety of other publication advice and guidance on traveling. So if you're traveling, how to secure your devices, depending on who you are and what organization you represent, maybe more details on the supply chain. We have a lot of cyber threat bulletins out there, but at the same time, we do have a lot of advice and guidance on how to secure email. And also, we have recently published some security clause publications that should be used in contracts. So I highly suggest you go take a look at that. And yeah. Also, just as a side note, I would be remiss if I didn't mention, since it is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, please go visit our Get Cyber Safe section of our website, which is the Government of Canada's campaign for individuals to stay cyber safe. It's more focused on the home. It's more focused on securing your Internet of Things devices, securing your home network, as well as some fraud prevention pieces for those more vulnerable areas of our population, so our more senior population, who are very sadly targeted. So there's a lot of information there. And yeah, I think that brings us to the end. Yep. So thank you, everyone. We are on Instagram. We are on X, so you can go take a look at those. I always recommend going to our website. And just as a final note, just to delineate the roles and responsibilities, to report, to report fraud, you would do so through the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. To report a cybercrime, you should report to your local police of jurisdiction or the RCMP. And to report spam, we have the Spam Reporting Center. You can see their email right there, or their website. And also, there's us. So you can reach out, report an incident on our website, or if you're one of our partners, through the portal. And yeah, I hope this was informative. I hope I didn't throw too much at you. I hope I didn't go too fast, which I might have. But yeah, I appreciate this opportunity, and stay cyber safe.
Thank you so much, Paul, for this interesting and scary talk. So before we start taking questions, so please ensure you provide your name, email address, and brief feedback so we can send you your certificate of attendance. I already shared it with you in the chat area. I will, so the mics now will be turned back on. So please feel free to raise your hand and ask questions. I will start with the first question. I'm the first one to raise my hand.
Go for it.
So, as you mentioned, AI technologies are amplifying cyberspace threats. So what AI-driven countermeasures are currently being developed or deployed to detect and prevent these risks?
Well, there are a variety of technologies out there. Now, being part of the federal government, we can't necessarily endorse certain products. We can't endorse also certain technologies. But what we can say is make sure that if you're procuring them, is to do the due diligence that you need to do in order to make sure that they fit your need, they fit security requirements, and meet maybe possibly international standards that may be out there when it comes to just securing products and practicing those defense in depth kind of procedures. But one of the things that the Cyber Center is saying a lot in the field of AI is get those policies, those organizational policies, especially when it comes to deploying any kind of AI technology. I mean, we do have automated technologies that are out there, but it's all up to the organization who can to do their due diligence and research and to make sure that they're not just getting it just for the sake of AI too, for deploying it. It is very useful, unquestionably. But you know, you have a lot of your automated cyber defense technologies that are out there, alerting systems that are out there. But yeah, it's also based on organizational capacity and resources too, I think, to procure. But there's a lot. I can't actually, in being a representative of the government, I can't actually come out and say, yeah, these ones are great. That's not what we do. But I realize I danced around the question a little bit. But I think, yeah, it's just what we're really saying is for organizations to do their research and make sure that you get all the information that you need.
Great, thank you so much. Is there any questions? Do we have any questions? Yes, please go ahead, Hank.
Mine's probably expected coming from an ethical hacker, but are you noticing that Russia is starting to make things like hacking tools as well as the cybercrime services easier to purchase or access for a North American market? I kind of think of the keyless repeaters or all those like hacking gadgets that are becoming available as well.
That's a good question. So my recommendation would be to go to our website. We have a bunch of information on the threat from Russia. That is out of my wheelhouse to directly comment on that, but I would just refer you to our website because we have a few documents. Also, look at CISA. Look at them. Look at our international partners. There's everyone's publishing. Everyone's talking about various threats. So that would be my recommendation. But me being far removed from the incident side of things at the Cyber Center, can't really comment on that, and I don't even know if they would be able to either.
No, that's totally fair. One of those I could tell you, but I might have to kill you questions. And what was the best way to connect with the partnerships team? I saw that email on there, but I didn't get a screenshot time.
Sure, no problem. Sean, if I send you that, do you mind kind of spreading that to the folks on this call? Would that be
Sure,
possible?
I can include it when I send out the certificates for attendance.
Excellent. That's
Thank
good. Yeah, no problem. No problem at all.
Great.
May I ask where you are from, Hank? Like what organization you represent?
I'm based in Calgary, Alberta, and I'm with X10 Technologies. I focus on our external penetration tests and ethical hacking engagements, as well as the dark web scans and cyber threat intelligence. Never a dull moment.
Of course not. No, thank you for the question. But yeah, we'll get you that email.
Beauty.
Great. Any other questions?
Cries of anguish, because I'm the bearer of bad news. So if you ever see my name again, you might be cursing me. I don't know.
Any other questions? Last call. Okay, great. So
It's a quiet group today.
yeah, maybe they are scared from the presentation. Okay, So before we wrap up, I'd like to extend a huge thank you to Paul Przytocki for sharing his expertise with us today. We truly appreciate you taking the time to speak with our community. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you, everybody. Take care and stay cyber safe. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. Take care, all.